Part 2, Scrum in the Real World. Chapter 3, Kicking Off a Project. Root Cause Analysis. So you have just started work for a new client or company and you need to use Scrum to deliver a project. Since Scrum is a framework, implementation of some of its practices tend to vary from company to company. Therefore, whether the company is or isn't using Scrum already, it is often helpful to take note of how the company goes about its daily business before implementing the practices. Are the Scrum rules being followed strictly? If not, is there a common sense reason why not? If there are no common sense reasons, then the first thing to do to establish which practices may be flawed or need improvement. This is called a root cause analysis. Communicating the benefits of Scrum. Before a project kicks off, I recommend asking the question, have the benefits of Scrum been communicated to all involved? At the beginning of a project, we can sometimes wrongly assume that everybody understands what Scrum is and that everybody is focused on delivering its rules. However, there are often individuals within the organization or within the team who, for whatever reason, do not have the belief or understanding of Scrum required to make it successful. To avoid this situation, or simply to make sure that this is not the case, it makes good sense for the Scrum Master to hold a kickoff meeting. One of the purposes of the meeting would be to make sure that everyone involved, definitely the Scrum team, but stakeholders too, if necessary, is clear on how Scrum works and how it will benefit them from their perspective. For example, for the product owner, I recommend explaining the return on investment that will come about from prioritizing the backlog. For team members, I recommend explaining how the framework will help them to work more productively and have fewer interruptions from third parties. For stakeholders, maybe in a separate meeting, I recommend clarifying the product owner's role and explaining the benefit of the shippable increment of the product. I would also emphasize the way the sprint review allows stakeholders to feedback into the process and to add value to their product. Kickoff meeting and definition of done. If you are a Scrum Master taking over a project, it is recommended to ask the team if there are any key issues that they would like to raise based upon their experience from previous projects. This may give some early insights to improving productivity and help start on the right foot. This is a form of retrospective, and although retrospectives are held at the end of every sprint, I suggest capturing the main issues based on prior knowledge. The purpose of this is to allow the team to communicate any suggestions or anxieties that may have built up from previous projects. This is particularly relevant going into new projects, especially if you are a new Scrum Master. Secondly, it gives everyone a very quick insight into some of the issues faced on the project. A Scrum Master can set about removing any impediments even before the first sprint is underway. Before project kicks off, the team should agree on the definition of done. This definition will apply to every sprint and will be used to decide whether the product increment meets the level of quality that the team experts are satisfied with. Done means that the product increment is potentially shippable. By getting the team to decide this, I have observed each expert adding his or her own seal of approval. For example, in software project, testers may want unit and acceptance test automation. Developers may want every task and defect complete. User experience specialists may want some user testing done, or at least sign off by a specialist. The Scrum Master should coach here to make sure the team understands that the outcome is potentially shippable product increment. Improving practices. The object in root cause analysis is to ask, what problems does the team have with the project delivery? Or, where are the impediments in the project? For example, In some cases, communication is a problem. In other teams, there are far too many defects in the product they have delivered, and yet other teams, there are people not fulfilling their roles or not fully understanding them. It is very important to establish where these problems are so they can be solved within the remit of Scrum. The common way to set about solving this is to ask, which Scrum practices can be enhanced or added to aid delivery of the project? For example, if the problem is communication, ask, is the stand-up or any other time boxes being run effectively? I recommend making sure that any issues raised at the daily Scrum are dealt with in some way directly after the meeting. Do not get me wrong, this does not mean that you can solve the issue on the spot, but you can at least start the process of solving it and make sure it is not forgotten. If everything else has been explored, maybe some kind of a routine meeting, email, or other form of message delivery that everybody can see and absorb is the answer. The importance of good initiation. In summary, the beginning stage of a project is an important time to make sure that everyone understands Scrum, its benefits, and what constitutes the shippable increment of a product. As usual, getting the fundamentals right means that the team is surely on the road to success.